Are we live?
All of it.
But you doing,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this workshop of July 20th, 6:30 start time to order. Commissioner Martin should be joining us soon, as along with Commissioner Mazon. We're going to go ahead and get started, though, because we believe in punctuality. I want to introduce our brand new tech team in the back. Chris is right there, and Matt right there. They're here tonight as a duo, but in the future they'll just be one of them. But they're going to make sure that we don't lose sound for YouTube and live stream and all that kind of stuff. So we welcome you guys. And of course, we good now? And of course, you know, all of our thoughts and prayers are with our city manager and his family. Got a great update today from the family. Continues to look positive, and he's responsive and talking with the family and those kinds of things. So we're just going to count this as an extended vacation for him, and we'll welcome him back when he gets back in town. With that, do I have an approval of the agenda, or do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it was published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any comments, questions on the floor from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And Dallas, take us away right into the depths of our general fund.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. I'll share with you that yesterday I spoke to Melinda, and she told me that Mike had been for his cell phone, and we gave her strict instructions to not give that man back his cell phone under any circumstance. As the mayor mentioned, we're here tonight to discuss your governmental funds. This is the second workshop we've had. This will be hopefully the second of 4. Before Mike left for conference, he and I did have the chance to go through these budgets. So everything in the budget you're seeing tonight has been seen by the city manager and vetted through his office. You have a couple of documents in front of you tonight. The first one is this property tax options chart. Lists the various different options and levels of property taxes you can levy, as well as the staff's recommendation. You have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in front of you, and then you have a copy of the governmental funds capital improvement plan in front of you as well. I've got just a few slides to go through. If the commission has questions at any point, please feel free to interrupt me. I intend this to be more conversational than presentational. So to start with, as always, with our budget timeline and process, we have a couple of things facing the commission that we will need decisions on at Monday night's meeting. Those will include your preliminary millage rate and your preliminary fire assessment rate. As the commission knows, those are the rates that you set that cap the maximum amount of fire assessment and millage you can assess for next year, and those are the amounts that get printed on your trim notices. So on Monday night, you'll set those caps. Monday night, we also have an economic forecast workshop at 6:30. The city's financial advisors will be here presenting to the commission an update on what they see the national economy doing, as well as what they see the city's local economy doing over the next foreseeable future. They'll also discuss debt strategies with the commission as we are looking at issuing some debt here in the next year or so. Like I said, that's at 6:30 in the city commission chambers. We'll have our third workshop in August, and then we'll reschedule our impact fee workshop for August as well. We'll have the final votes on fire assessment, our final budget workshop, and then the adoption hearings are in September for the budget.
Dallas and everybody who's scheduling these, you know, we have one commissioner who really struggles to get here much before 7. I understand on Monday night we have a commission meeting and we have this forecast workshop. But for the rest of our budget, are we trying to shift to 6:30, or are we able to get to 7? Because
If
I know
I remember
tonight,
correctly, 6:30 was the compromise, but I'm not.
did we have a compromise, or? I mean, 7's okay with everybody here?
I'm on disability, so it don't matter.
We can push them to 7.
Let's push everything to 7. I mean, again, Monday night, we've already got one at 7. If that commission meeting agenda looks relatively short, maybe we can do 6:45 and we can split the difference there. But for the rest of the budgets, let's see if we can get it back to 7. That way we'll at least have 4 folks here.
Absolutely. For commission's considerations, items we're looking for commission input on tonight, or if not tonight, if you'll get with myself or Jamie in the near future and let us know your thoughts, we would greatly appreciate it. The biggest thing we are excited to mention to the commission tonight is we have balanced the general fund budget on a millage rate that is less than the rollback rate. So that is a tax reduction for your residents from the current property taxes to 5.92. We're going into this budget understanding that we're in some tough times and residents are struggling. So we're looking at everything we can to reduce the impact to our residents. We are not proposing an increase in our fire assessment. The fire assessment was adopted at 195. We're not proposing any increase in the fire assessment, and the rate we'll request on Monday night will be the 195. In terms of personnel, as the commission knows, we've got some opportunities to increase staffing throughout the city based off of benchmarking and workload. We'll talk about that. We are requesting funding for a compensation study in this year's budget to help us identify areas of the city that need to be addressed in terms of wage and benefits. And then, of course, we're still working on the wage scale amendment.
Dallas,
Yes, sir.
what would that compensation study cost?
It's about $30,000. Mr. Mayor, it's about $30,000.
For folks watching, the question was about the compensation study. The compensation will cost $30,000. There we go.
Study, yes, sir.
Just make sure it's on the record. Okay.
It is a one-time cost. Capital improvement program, as of course every year we talk about our capital assets, our long-term debt plans, and then we still have American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding to discuss. So as the commission knows, Newberry is growing. Last year, our growth rate between 2020 and 2021 was 11.2%. Throughout this budget process, we've worked to tie our increases, if necessary, back to population or CPI increases. So our population increased 11.2%. That is a double-edged sword. A lot of the revenues that the state, we have state entitlements to, did increase as well based off that population. But of course, our cost to provide services also increased. This is our population projection that Mike likes to show. What I find interesting is we've almost beat the 2025 middle of the range population estimate there. So we probably need to update these, but we're growing faster than we anticipated.
Dallas, we've spent some time in the past, although I don't know if we've ever come to sort of a resolution on whether or not our taxes, permits, fees, costs is commensurate with the population. You know, are people paying for the services? Are they not paying for the services? So when we're having this conversation about our population growth and, you know, we got to provide services, are we in the range? I mean, we have some people in town that believe every time we add a new house, you know, we make tons more money and that's just piling up somewhere, right? And then you have other times where we talk about we add another house, but that house doesn't actually, its taxable value doesn't pay for the services that it receives. Can you talk to me a little bit about where we're at this point?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I can try. It is tricky. It's hard to, there are some residents who don't take any services directly from us, but they drive on our roads. They benefit from the fact that we have comprehensive planning and we don't build, unsavory businesses next door to them. They benefit from the fact that we have stormwater and our roads aren't flooded. There are other residents who benefit from all of those, but also take additional benefits such as enjoying our parks or calling on police, mosquito spraying. Of course, all of our residents enjoy the fact that we offer law enforcement and fire services as well. So it is hard to pinpoint what, if you call the fire department every other week, you're getting a higher level of benefit than if you don't. Generally, though, we do see our expenses exceeding the revenue we receive from a home being built. Residents demand more services than commercial businesses do. As this slide points out, the average resident in Newberry pays $500 a year in taxes to the city. So if we're building 100 houses a year, we're making $50,000. That's not piling money on top of money, especially when you consider all the capital improvement projects and programs the commission's offering to its residents.
I appreciate it. That gives me a framework.
Absolutely. Our taxable value this year came in at $616 million. That's, it's not, that slide's not supposed to be there, I don't think, or maybe it is. I'll go back to it though. So that's a 12.7% increase from the certified taxable value last year. If you remember a slide or two ago, we had 11% increase in population. So that basically ties to the, the increase in taxes came from the increase in population. As I mentioned earlier, our rollback rate is 5.9244. Current rate is 5.999. If you adjusted our rollback for inflation, according to the state, you'd adopt a rate of 6.2 mils. As I mentioned earlier, our rate is currently based at 5.9200. For your general fund, we have a currently proposed budget of just under $9.3 million, up from a budget of $8.6 million this year. That's a 7% increase in revenues. And then in your expenses, we have $9.8 million in expenses over $8.6 from this year, which is 13% increase in expenditures. What's driving that large increase, and we'll talk about a little bit later on, is staff is proposing to use your fund balance, the reserves that you've collected above and beyond your reserve policy, to pay for some of the capital projects that the commission has put on the plan. So that's why you see a negative $550,000. That's us using some of those reserves down for some construction of some projects. This is our dollar bill that people either love or they hate. But essentially what it's showing you is for every dollar in property taxes that a resident in Newberry pays, the city's only getting about a quarter of those property taxes. The majority of it's going to the school board and the county, with the rest going towards various other local governments. Yeah, so school board employees, they're all overpaid. As we discussed at the last workshop, in terms of millage rate comparison to the other cities in our area, Newberry is sitting at the lowest of the cities that offer comparable services. So of ourselves, Gainesville, Alachua, and High Springs, we are offering the most competitive rates for our residents, providing the same or higher levels of service. And then again, obviously, we're proposing a millage rate reduction this year, so we would move even higher up in the charts there for being a better value for our taxpayers.
Don't leave this slide for 1 second. I mean, if you're going to talk to residents about any slide tonight, right, I think this is the slide. Because, we've got, all of the cities. Is Trenton up there? No. Those are everything in Alachua County, right? And I'm not sure that you would really say that La Crosse, I love La Crosse and I love Micanopy, right? But those are not cities where economic growth is exploding, right, like that's happening here. So, out of every other city in the county, we're doing the best for our residents, right? And that's what I think we need to keep hammering home. I hear from folks over in Trenton all the time. Remember, City of Trenton doesn't have a fire department. City of Trenton doesn't have a police department anymore. So it's not quite fair to compare Newberry and Trenton. I wouldn't say Trenton is a comparison sister city either. They just both use the county services, right? So when we talk about all, what's going on in Alachua County, this is the slide that you would want to point people to.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's also, from when I started here, we would compare ourselves to Chieflands and Trentons. Those cities have not seen the growth we have. Last I checked, we're almost quadruple the size of Trenton in terms of population now. So it are not apples to apples comparisons.
What does our contract with the law, what does it work out to millage rate? Do you know?
So our contract next year is about $900,000. According to this, 1 mil is just shy of 6, so 1 1/3, 1 1/2, 1.4 mil, something around there.
So truthfully, it puts us between High Springs and Waldo, right?
High Springs. No, sir, because our law enforcement's included in that 5.99.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Your
good.
your
good.
millage of 5.9 includes the funding for law
All
enforcement.
right, okay.
Yep.
COVID stuff.
No, I mean, this slide, I think, I mean, is as close as comparing with the law enforcement, MSU, fire assessment as you can, while recognizing that not all cities offer the same,
Right.
services, right?
We should put included here where it says in law, MS.
Yeah, yeah.
But we've been,
Waldo doesn't have their police department anymore.
correct.
And Waldo doesn't pay in, so all of those cities have opted out of the MSTU. And when we opted out of the MSTU, that's where I had the 2.2 number. It had gone to 2.2, which at that point was a 19% increase over what it was the previous year. And now if we were in the MSTU, it'd be 3.56. And we've been in this contract now for 4 years, 5, something like that. That's just an exorbitant increase.
Exorbitant savings.
Absolutely. Yeah, every year we're saving our taxpayers over $1.5 million. Kudos to the commission. I've beat this slide to death for the last decade, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but if you want to increase your revenues, you can increase your utility tax and you can adopt special assessments. I don't think we need to spend too much more time on that. Except for ours, our rates aren't, in government side.
You're talking about the cost of living.
Everything else,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're not increasing. Life is.
This slide is in there from last year. We decided to keep it in just to remind the commission that when it comes to solid waste fees, we're also offering a really good offering for our residents in terms of cost. Jamie and I were just talking, and he mentioned that a better way to look at this is the cost per pickup. So in Newberry and Trenton are the only two cities that offer twice a week pickup. So really our cost per pickup is $9 a month, whereas in Hawthorne your cost per pickup is $18, Latchwood's $18.60, Gainesville it's $37 a pickup per month. So we are really offering our residents quite a value in not only having the lowest rates, but also offering double the service that anybody else, with the exception of Trenton, offers. And even compared to Trenton, Trenton's offering it for $12 to pick up, and we're offering it for $9. So
No, that might be 3 times a week because they pick up trash twice a week and then they pick up recyclables on another day, so it's actually 3
Yeah.
times a week.
yes, sir. All the other cities also offer recycling, though. And then you'll see it in a little bit. The commission last year increased these rates in order to fund the capital improvement fund. We've continued that. The increase in rates the commission adopted is going into our capital improvement fund. Speaking of which, this is our current capital improvement fund in FY22. This is what the commission adopted to fund capital improvements. It's a combination of general fund surplus, law enforcement savings, the public service tax on water, solid waste, and impact fees. We've continued that same funding philosophy into this year. Obviously, the law enforcement savings was a one-time. Do you need me to go back, Commissioner Clark?
No, I knew what you were
I
saying.
saw the error.
We're backing out the law enforcement.
We're back, the one-time funding, so we're not including it this year. However, the increase in public service tax is going directly into the CIP. The solid waste increase is going directly into the CIP. Last year, the commission told its residents that we were increasing those fees to fund capital improvements. We're continuing to show that that's what we're doing. As I mentioned earlier, we are proposing to use some of your excess fund balance to fund capital improvement projects next year. That's the $450,000 you see listed there. And then, of course, once the commission adopts impact fees, if you so choose, those will go directly into your capital improvement fund as well to cover the cost of some of these large capital improvements.
Dallas, what do we try to keep in the general fund surplus?
In the general fund reserves, it's 2.5 months of operating expenditures, which the mayor just asked me about, and I didn't have a chance to look it up. I want to say it's $1.7, $1.8 million. This $450,000 is above and beyond what you have in the reserves. So we're not dipping into the reserves that you guys have set aside for.
So that's what, so 450 just above and beyond what we have right now.
Correct. You have about $900,000 above and beyond, and we're proposing using half of it into the capital improvement fund. So your rate, your reserves, and your reserve policy you've adopted will still be met.
Got it?
And we set that reserve as a resolution, so the commission would have to vote to dip down into it. We can't, or they would have to vote to violate that policy?
So staff can't just go into it.
Right.
You can adopt a budget to go into it. What would happen, because you've adopted a policy now, is your auditors would write us up and say, hey, you are violating your own policy.
Okay.
There's actually two reserves. One of them you set up as a economic stabilization fund, which is a little bit easier to access. So if the economy crashes tomorrow, we can access it a little bit easier to continue to operate. The other one is more, we got hit by a hurricane, we need to access capital. So with all that revenue coming into the capital improvement fund from all those various areas, where is it going? So it's going to go fund the next phases of the City Hall expansion, the next phases of Southwest 15th extension, the next phase of the downtown connector road. All of the projects funded in the capital improvement fund are only funded with that money that is coming in. The next phase, where we actually do construction on a city hall or construction on a road, will come later once we have impact fees adopted, and those will come through debt financing. And we'll have those conversations with the commission once impact fees have been adopted, probably sometime in late spring, early summer of next year.
Okay, so I think this is an important point to clarify as well. Right now, what staff has managed to do, while lowering taxes, has funded the three big projects that this commission wants to see move forward, right? So again, when it comes down to breaking ground, we'll go and get debt service, we'll have the impact fees, we'll have all those kinds of conversations. But right now, when someone says, well, you're talking about connecting 26th to 15th, you're talking about connecting 15th to 337, you're expanding, where's that money coming from? So we figured out how to pay for it and reduce the millage rate at the same time, right? Now, next year, this just gets us to the point where we're ready to then go figure out exactly how much debt we need, how much those construction costs are going to be. Then we'll go issue the debt. But by that time, we'll be collecting the impact fees, and we'll probably be collecting the impact fees for some number of months before we actually go out to get the debt.
Yes.
But the debt will be talked about on Monday night. We'll have some projections about when's a good time to go issue debt.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, you're correct. In addition, when we go and take out the debt, we don't owe the payment right away, so we'll be collecting impact fees for a year or two before our first payment is going to be due on any of these projects. All right, so that was all the revenue. I'll stop there before I continue on and see if there's any questions about
Any questions?
revenue. We're not increasing taxes.
All this is on 5.92. Again, I always think it's a good idea to give yourself the opportunity in case something happens on Monday night to adopt 5.99. You can't go over that, but then when we get to the actual budget, you go back down to the 5.92. But that way, if something happens 2 weeks from now and you need, I think the difference between 5.92 and 5.99 is roughly 50 grand.
Yes, sir.
It's not a lot of money, but who knows what happens in the world, right? Anything about revenues?
No.
Okay,
Well,
good. All right, move on.
And just so you guys know, the GASB, who's in charge of government accounting, has decided that revenues and expenses are verboten now. So soon we're going to have to change our language to say current outflows of resources and current inflows of resources. So just get prepared for that, because GASB has nothing better to do with their lives. So in terms of expenses, personnel, obviously a large expense of the city. We did have FRS, Florida Retirement System, increases this year. They were fairly minimal, looking at it as an impact to the budget. We're currently budgeting about a 15% increase in health insurance. That's about $60,000 across all of the funds. We are shopping health insurance this year. We're looking at pooled health insurance. We're doing whatever we can to keep those costs down while still maintaining good insurance for our employees. In terms of compensation, we will continue to offer merit and COLA raises as the commission has in the past. We're looking into a compensation study, again, to understand where we need to make adjustments in our personnel and to get people into the right positions and right titles. And then, of course, we are still working on that minimum wage amendment that was passed in the Constitution 2 years ago. In terms of your long-term staffing, as the commission knows, every year all the departments look at their 10-year staffing plan and forecast their staffing needs. Again, we're looking at workload, population increase, those sorts of issues. And then, of course, we also benchmark ourselves to other cities. The Florida League of Cities has a general rule of thumb of 1 full-time employee for every 100 residents. If you take that benchmark with our current population, we should have about 77 full-time employees. We're currently at about 70 full-time employees.
For 100 or 1,000?
It's 1 per 100 or 10 for 1,000.
1 full-time per 100.
Correct. So based on our 7,700 population, we should have about 77 full-time employees. Like I said, we're currently at 70. In the governmental side of things, the city manager is recommending 4 positions be added to the budget. These 4 positions are listed on the screen. And then, of course, every year we are also looking at adjustments to our other benefits packages, not only in reducing, but also making sure we're offering our employees the benefits they're looking for. Commissioner Clark, the tuition reimbursement program, very popular, is also funded in next year's budget again.
Glad it's taking advantage of.
It's at least taken advantage by me. I appreciate it. But there are several employees who are taking advantage of it, yes.
Good.
I think it's worth pausing for just 1 second on this 1 employee per 100, right? Because I think that, we are a growing city, and about 6 months ago, I dug down into that number pretty good. I called up some other cities, I called up some other, folks outside. And that isn't ideal. That's what you want to strive for, right? There aren't a whole lot of cities that are hitting that at a perfect pace, right? I think right now it has more to do with just finding people, right? Everybody's out looking for workers. But if we're at, I don't think that we're at 7,600 now, actually, because that population point is pretty old. I think we're probably closer, to 8,000, and I think that's where we'll be heading. So if you guys add 4 in the general fund, that still puts us 3 employees shy of hitting the ideal, right? If we grew at 11% last year, right, we're looking at another 300 to 400 people next year, then that would be 3 to 4 FTEs next year, right? And we're still the 3 back, right? So I think we need to figure out a plan for, are we really striving for the 1 to 100? Is that a policy that we want to set? That way we're not really talking every year about how many employees we want. The question is, staff, how close are we to our goal of having 1 per 100? And that, I think, is a better way to approach it, because in my experience, every time we talk about adding an employee in the city, it becomes a political football, right? Oh, y'all got too many people, all that kind of thought. But I think in a lot of our residents' mind, they're still viewing Newberry as a city of 2,000, 2,500, and they haven't quite caught on, made that mental shift that we're a city closer to 8,000 at this point in time, right? So that policy, 1 to 100, I don't know that we'll ever hit it, stay at it, people leave, transfer, those kinds of things, but I like that as a better approach to the conversation. Commissioner Farnsworth?
So 1 per 100 include the fire department employees?
Yes,
does,
sir.
yeah.
But we count them, although they work 3,000 hours in a year, they still only count as 1 FTE.
And we don't count sheriff's department.
No, sir.
But if we had our own fire department, our own police department, like some other cities, then we would count.
That's a good question. Would they count if we had our own police department?
Yes, sir, they would.
Because if you counted because from Sheriff Watson's perspective, right, he's dedicating, 11, in order to have one person here
Something like
all the
that.
time. We'd be over that, right? But I generally think of the 1 employee as picking up the trash, picking up limbs, filling in the potholes, So I wouldn't even count, in my brain, the fire department, right? Because they're servicing. I'm not saying they're not providing a service. But when I think about the employees, I think about making sure that when I call the 24/7 hotline, somebody's addressing my need, right? So if you took out the fire department, we'd be down, because there's like
14.
16, but they count as 11.
It'd be 14 FTEs.
Does
Would
that
be 14,
include the part-time, like with the?
Because two part-times make it full, right, in the calculation here.
If they work 20 hours a week.
So,
So like in the fire department, we may have 30 employees, but it's only ever 14 FTEs.
right.
To Commissioner Farnsworth's point, this is 1 FTE per 100 aggregated across the state of Florida. So there are many cities that don't have fire, don't have police, have both. Many cities, most cities, with the exception of 32 of us, don't have an electric department. So our electric department employees count in our FTEs, and High Springs doesn't have an electric department for them to count. So it isn't apples to apples. It's just the benchmark across all cities aggregated. How many employees do you have per resident? Some cities have libraries, those sorts of things.
And I'm with you. I don't know, we should get wrapped around the axle about 1 per 100 more than we need to know if we need more at the electric, more at the water, or more at anything.
Mr. Mayor, from a
that's-
management standpoint, the 1 per 100 is a good benchmark for us to make sure we're not vastly over or understaffed, but we're not proposing staff just to get to some number. The staff, any staff that the city manager is recommending is based off of workload, based off of need, based off of discussions with those areas about what needs to happen, not just, well, we need 77 employees, so let's hire people to hire people.
I think if you tell me we're at 70 FTEs and we were at 7,700, I'd say we're in the ballpark, right? If we were at 50 FTEs and we were at 77, then I would say, yeah, our staff is probably overworked, or our residents aren't receiving a very high level of service. And that's what I mean when I talk about using that benchmark as the end to the conversation. So if Jamie comes and says his department is all stressed out and overworked, when I would go back to this number and say, well, how many employees should we have in that department for a city of our size? And this would help me frame that conversation about whether or not we're heading in the right direction or the wrong direction.
And we absolutely go through that exercise. If Jamie says he needs another public works tech, we look at other cities with comparable services and service territory and say, okay, well, High Springs isn't similar to us, but pick another city that's similar to us with a similar amount of roadways. Well, they're only doing it with 4 employees. Why do you need 9 employees to do it? So those conversations are being had. Also, to the mayor's point about the population being old, that 7,700 number is as of April of 2021. It's the most current number that's come out. So it is over a year old at this point. So I would agree with the mayor that we're definitely over 8,000 people now.
And I would, that first assistant director of finance, in our current situation, I've spent some time thinking about how, Jamie's got a supervisor, right? But Dallas, he doesn't have a right-hand man, right? And that has, in my brain, been a glaring mishap for the current situation we find ourselves in, because we've got 2 assistant managers taking on more duties. One of them has somebody to kind of turn to and say, hey, I need you to help. Another one doesn't, right? Not to say anything about the other 3 positions that are proposed up there, but in our succession planning of how are we training up the next round, the next generation, I'm glad to see that one up there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also on that one, it is something our auditors have suggested that we need additional accounting help based off of workload and the complexity of the accounting the city is now doing. So, anything else on this one before I move on?
No, I think.
We've got merit and COLA in the budget at 592.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did it commensurate with what we did last year?
It's similar. So last year it was a 2% COLA and up to 4% merit. This year it's been increased based off of inflation. The average COLA that We're seeing cities give us 5%. We're proposing a 3% COLA and an up to 5% merit, again, tied back to that minimum wage.
Okay, thank you.
And so this year we're going, sorry.
So this year you're asking for 3%
3% COLA,
COLA.
And then-
Last year we did 2,
correct.
okay,
And then it'd be up to 5% merit,
5% merit. And last year we did 4.
up to 4.
And the other municipal averages that are doing 5, they don't, do they
They're
do
just doing
merit and
5%
COLA?
COLA.
Just 5% COLA, they don't do the merit, so our
So we're budgeting
employees-
5%
Right.
total.
Our employees could have an 8% difference,
They could, yes.
right? Because if I get, that's a 5% out of a 5, because I always get confused, it's a 5-point rating, and I can get a 5% raise if I score a 5? Or is it,
There's like
if I get a
ranges.
5-point, I get a 3% raise,
If you get a 5 out of 5, you get a 5%
a
raise.
5% raise, so I could get a 5% raise.
But if you get a 3, you don't get a 3%, you probably get a 0 or a 1%.
I got you, right, okay, so I could
Thank you, Brian.
conceivably get an 8% raise this year if I score off the charts on all my evaluations.
Correct.
And everybody will get a 3% COLA.
Correct.
Okay,
The average we're budgeting for most employees to receive would be in the 5% range.
okay, all right. Welcome, Commissioner Clark.
So I know we went through this, and I'm just, on the merit side, I've always had a little problem with the merit part, and I've spoken out loud about it because I see, and we've talked about this as a whole and as staff, but the merit to me gets tied to people, if the boss loves the one that comes butters up every morning and the other, the merit, I just have a hard time with the merit part. Because
Mr.
I just
Mayor.
don't know that it's fair from the bottom to the top.
Mr. Mayor, it's definitely something to struggle with. You have that same issue if you just do flat COLAs, because then everybody gets the same. We found that a mixture of the both addresses that. We do provide all of our evaluators with training every year on how to avoid bias and understand, that the person who sucks up every day shouldn't be getting the same, it's all based on productivity. Our process also requires multiple reviews of evaluations, so not to pick on Jamie's department, but he's got lots of employees and supervisors. His supervisors evaluate his employees. Jamie then checks their evaluations to make sure they're consistent. They then come to the HR department. We check to make sure they're consistent across not only his department, but the whole city. Then they go back to him.
And-
If there's issues, we take them to the city manager.
It's good layers, and that's what I'm saying, because what you just said kind of triggered me, because somebody that may get 0 don't need to be working for the city. We probably need to be
If you
putting
get a
them down
0,
the
you get
road.
put on a performance improvement
Right,
plan.
that's,
Yep.
As someone who works in an industry where everybody gets the same every year, all
can be hard.
0.9% increase that we get, I can tell you, and this was true in the city of Newberry back when I first started, when there was raises, everybody got the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, what's my incentive to come in and work hard? That guy got just as much as I did, and he doesn't do
both
anything.
ways.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that this mixture, everybody gets something, and then if I work hard, I can get a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Balance.
Yeah, and like I said, we do review them across the city, and one supervisor can't be just a real jerk or just a real, fluff ball and say everybody in my department's perfect. We know that that's not true. And so we've had those conversations about, hey, this isn't right, so.
It's on a commission.
Absolutely.
Do the employees do a self-evaluation?
We don't require it. Some departments require their employees to do self-evaluations. Like I require my employees to do self-evaluations. They don't like it, but it's required.
Yeah, I never liked it either, but
So it's on a
it kind of
department
gives you an
basis.
idea of their perception of themselves.
Yes, and usually that's sometimes very enlightening. So yeah, we leave that to the departments to decide if they want to or not.
Dallas, does the commission count as in the COLA?
Yes.
So the commission gets a 3%?
Yeah, the
Is
commission.
that
would-
set by resolution? Does it, the longer I'm here,
I
the
think
more I
when we
think
do
it
it-
should be set by resolution, because that makes it not political.
Yeah, so when
right?
we
It
adopt the
just- it's
budget.
Index.
You adopt the pay scale every
Right.
year, and the commission and the mayor are in our pay scale, and it specifically adopts your pay rates for the year. And so we've always increased your rates by whatever the COLA was that year.
Okay, so that's
Same
why
for the-
Commissioner
the-
Farnsworth is advocating he should get a 5, because he
Correct.
wants the 8%.
Well, no, the commission
No, I
doesn't get
think-
merit raises. In that resolution, it also provides a COLA raise to the city clerk and to the city
Right,
manager.
okay.
My biggest thing is this FRS thing. I can't believe we can't get in there, and you got other commissioners that are getting,
6%?
yeah, whatever.
It's like
it is.
42%. It's pretty high.
Well, I brought it up with Representative Clemens and Senator Perry, and one of them has to sponsor opening it up.
Yep.
And they only open it up every 10 years or so, but it's been about 10 years.
It's been over 10, because when we
Yeah.
looked into it several years ago, it was already past 10 years.
Yeah, so if Representative Clemens is successful in his campaign, because he'll be on the ballot, he'll be number 2 in Tallahassee in the House side. And Senator Perry, if he's successful, he'll be number 2, right? So Newberry will be well represented. We started out with both Keith and Chuck as junior, or as freshmen, right? And not a whole lot of power. So hopefully we can ask at that position, it's time to open this thing up and
Yeah.
we can get this over with.
Thank you, House.
You're welcome. Anything else before I move on from this slide?
Oh, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
When they go in there and change that on FRS, is the years before, isn't that something?
Nope.
So what you would see, so similar to, for those of us who've changed class, whatever years of service you were in one class, you'll have that, and then you'll have another line that says, and now you're this.
So you gotta win 4 more elections.
Y'all should have known this.
We did know that.
No, you didn't.
We were told.
You were told something. Nobody checked on it. Mr. Farnsworth been here 100 years. Why hasn't it
Well,
changed? You didn't know.
Yeah, apparently they mailed a letter to Keith in like the early
The issue
2000s.
here,
and-
Commissioner Clark, is the rest of us are so young, we don't really think about retirement,
When I started, we didn't have a retirement program. So
Well, I just want to get all I can get when that time comes.
we got $50 a month, and that was
You did it for your community.
The commission can elect to put themselves in another retirement plan, just,
Really?
yeah, I mean, you guys can do what you want. So like the
You mean
city,
with the city?
yeah, so the city offers a 457B plan. So like in Mike's contract, your contract with him requires that you put a portion of his salary into. It's different. It's
I want a portion of Mike's salary
into your 457B. Sure, 0%, absolutely. It's more similar to a 401K plan than a pension plan, but it is available to the commission if that's something you'd want us to look into.
You can get a whole $10 a month put in there.
It's whatever the commission wants to set. It's a max of $22,000 a year, so please don't vote to give yourselves $22,000 a year each, but.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna keep rolling.
all right.
So this is straight out of your annual financial statements. I know I don't have to tell you that. I know you guys all thoroughly read those reports I give you
And that font,
in this
and that
font.
font size.
What this is showing is a 10-year look at our FTEs, just to tag along to the conversation we were having. So at the end of last fiscal year, we had 65.6 FTEs. We added 5 in the current year, so we're at that 70.6 FTEs. And this breaks it out for you where those FTEs are located. In your operating budgets, we are proposing a continuation budget, no major changes of service. Of course, we're experiencing increased pricing on goods and services. Florida's CPI was 7% last month. So we are also struggling with purchasing goods and services at the prices we plan to. Of course, fuel prices, the commission knows, are up as well. So that's also impacting us. So the majority of increases throughout the budget are just based off of population and CPI increase, no major service level changes. The contingency fund is funded in the proposed budget at $50,000, as well as your economic development incentive program that the commission has used in the past to incentivize commercial development in the city. That's also funded at $50,000. In your capital improvement program, you have a copy of the capital improvement for the governmental funds. In your packet here, I won't go through these one by one, but they are listed there for you. Of course, we always look at the difference between expansion of existing programs and the renewal and replacement of our existing infrastructure, with an emphasis on making sure the infrastructure we have stays well maintained and available for our residents. This year, we will have more funding available in the CRA. We're currently projecting about $100,000 in the CRA budget. We do have a proposed budget for that as well. We scheduled a CRA meeting before the August commission meeting. Since the CRA is a separate entity, we do need to have a separate meeting for its budget discussions. American Rescue Plan.
Can you go back to the CRA question for 1 second? And I know we're going to have a separate meeting on that, but how does the CRA then factor into the general fund? Can we couple it? Can we pair it? Can we team up? Can we leverage it? Or does it have to be a standalone? And if it's a completely standalone, then?
It's completely standalone from a financial standpoint. The general fund has to transfer money to the CRA. So one of the items budgeted in here is a $50,000 transfer from the general fund to the CRA. That's your TIF, tax increment financing amount this year. The county will give it $50,000 as well. Now, in terms of projects, the CRA and the city government can work together on projects. We have to be careful. The CRA cannot replace city government programs. So if there's a project that we've identified in our CIP that is a general maintenance of city government, the CRA can't pay for it because the CRA is supposed to be from new investment. But for example, on I want to call it Kincaid Road, but I know that's not the Seaboard Drive.
Seaboard Drive.
Seaboard Drive. Kings, yeah, sorry, I don't know why Kincaid. Seaboard Drive, the city has a plan to renovate that and enhance that street. The CRA could use its funds to even further enhance it. So, you know, if the CRA decided we wanted a higher level of landscaping or better parking or those sorts of things, the CRA could definitely.
So conceivably in 10 years, when it has significantly more money, we could be having another budget workshop sitting as a CRA board, and the whole night we're just thinking about the CRA. Right now, because it has not much money, we're sort of wrapping it in. Okay.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
And we're gonna have a separate discussion on the CRA,
Sure.
but it's only gonna be a half hour because it's $100,000, and the budget you're looking at now is 10 million.
Yeah.
So. All right. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, proceed. See where you're at.
I'm
You're on
on.
the same one?
I'm on slide 22.
Keep going.
Okay. So American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA as it's known. As the commission knows, we originally were planned to get $2.6 million. We ended up getting a little bit over $3.1 million in ARPA funds. The commission has adopted a funding plan for the majority of those funds. That's listed on the display here. There's $430,000 remaining available for other projects and programs. Since we had this conversation a year ago, the Department of Treasury has loosened the restrictions on the ARPA funds and pretty much said that if you received less than $10 million in ARPA funds, you can kind of do what you want with it, with the exception of a couple of very specific exclusions. So for example, we're not allowed to put it into a pension plan, those sorts of things. So we do have $430,000 available to be allocated to a project. Staff's recommendation would be either to apply it towards a project that we don't have funding currently for, such as a road paving project or a construction project, or add it to one of the projects we're currently working on, such as City Hall, elevated storage tank, 15th, one of those projects.
If the commission remembers, when we came up with these numbers, like the 600,000, we were operating under those restrictions, right? And so the ARPA money could only pay for certain things with the road expansions, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we could just dump the 430 back into the existing projects, and that just means we have to borrow a little less money, right? Those things go. Or, it's just like the 2.6 or the now 3.1. It's very rare that this body ever gets a lump sum of money to kickstart a project, right? So if there is another project that the commission has been looking for, right? I mean, what's the current amount to chip seal a mile? 100,000, 120,000? 10 million?
I believe you'll be somewhere around $100 a linear foot, depending on drainage.
I don't
What-
do multiplication, so
$520,000.
$500 to $20,000 a mile?
If you include drainage improvements.
Oh, yeah, I don't like to drain, so. Go
It's
ahead.
The other option for the commission, too, would just be to dump this into your CIP fund, where we're funding a bunch of these projects out of. My recommendation would be that we do hold $100,000 of the ARPA funding back as a contingency for all of these projects, because we budgeted to do these a year ago, and inflation has happened. So I would recommend keeping at least $100,000 as a cushion for some of these projects.
Commissioner Clark?
So when we went through, just like last year when we did the budget, we seemed to get good things happen to us. The Quint, we know we funded the Quint. We got a little something coming that may help us. So if that comes to fruition, great. We've got some grants that have come to fruition that are starting to come aboard. I'm going to say this as a commissioner, any money remaining in the budget whatsoever goes to roads, period. That's my take. We have got to get it done. 15th is an absolute nightmare. And I'm going to say that even for our fire trucks sitting right here. Going down these roads, even for safety, is a hazard on our city trucks. It beats the hell out of them, all of them, driving up and down these roads. The potholes are 18 inches, 24 inches deep now. UPS can't even drive on them. I'm getting calls from UPS. So FedEx is okay. They got better trucks, but I'm just saying.
They're littler, they don't use as much.
But I am going to say, before the commission, for public record, I want every dime spent on getting the ones that are terrible. 46 is terrible right now. I rode it in the rain the other night. Totally terrible. I know that's going to take some time. It's a major paved road. It's a DOT certified road, but 15th is it? It can be redone. 30th needs to be done, and then we need to get the county to get on board to get 30th all the way through to 241 done. All of these roads going east and west that get us out of this area to I-75 are atrocious. So, like I'm saying, for me, this kind of money would be a godsend to help us get our roads under control. And I know the supervisor sitting right here, manager sitting right here, but I'm just telling you, we got money. We tend to keep pushing the roads away. We got a grant for back here in the back, correct, coming, we hope. So my big thing, let's get our roads taken care of, and then we'll go back to spending money where we need to spend it on some of these other projects.
Commissioner Mazon?
Yeah, that grant that was gonna come in, wasn't that gonna take care of like a large percentage of the roads?
Just the
ones on the-
unpaved roads
Unpaved
on the north side of town.
And 15th Ave, isn't that county and city?
I think 15 is all
It's
county.
county on the east side of 47,
And it's
city on the
half
west side.
county and city.
Right, and I was driving down that today, and I had a question, because, I know the counties where they're headed is, we're just gonna keep maintaining, we're gonna pave roads that aren't too bad. We're gonna have a pavement program, not a fix-it program, right? And 15th is chip sealed, but it wasn't done very well.
Right.
And it's in pretty poor shape. If we were to chip seal over that, just to fix it, can you repave chip seal with more chip seal, or is it?
Mr. Mayor, chip seal is a surface treatment. I've had this discussion with some of the elected officials before. Basically, chip seal is based for something under 40,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight. Even with that, if you chip seal a road, and 15th East is a good example because you have high bank swales, there's nowhere for the water to go but down the road. You can consider chip seal like putting paint on a house. The water has to get away. If the water does not have a way to shed off, it's don't get under the paint. When water gets under chip seal, it lifts it. It is a surface treatment only. It is not a long-term solution for a road issue. The long-term solution is to, one, get your stormwater off the road, two, to get adequate base and a good asphalt concrete layer on top of it. So you can chip seal over what's there, but it's basically, a good analogy is if you put brand-new tile on bad subfloor, the brand-new tile will break.
The county has a rural road pavement that they allow that doesn't require the setbacks for the trees. Do we have that same? It's a lot cheap. When I was talking, I think it was Ramon, he said it's a lot cheaper because you're not cutting trees back, pushing them back. You don't have the 30-foot on both sides. And it's for the decorative, the
only thing I could think that Ramon would be referencing is what they call pervious pavement. Basically, it's designed to allow the water on the road, the stormwater, to perk through the road. I don't know that long-term that's a much better solution than chip seal, but that's my personal opinion.
Okay. And it's still $1 million a mile to pave a road?
No, sir. We are actively working right now due to your road impact fee study to determine what the new cost is. Since 2020, construction costs have increased dramatically. The last week and a half, Dallas, I, and 3 different engineers and 2 road paving contractors are trying to come to terms with what the new estimating cost per linear foot is. And it greatly varies jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but some of the numbers we're seeing now are 3 times what I've used for estimating in the past 3 years.
Well, I have a lot of sympathy for what Commissioner Clark is talking about, and $430,000. My view of chip seal doesn't vary greatly from Jamie's view. I do believe, though, that we do have some dirt roads that have population trip points that are low enough where chip seal is a good option. And I would love to see a list of those roads. I agree, 15th and 30th, the population, the trip's gonna be way too high for chip seal there. We need a permanent solution. But I think we do have some roads. 266 was chip sealed 10 years ago. It's in relatively good condition. I think we have some roads like that we might be able to make an impact with, because I think our residents want to see us do something. And this would be a good opportunity. Hang on one second. Commissioner Mazon, were you on this point, or did you want to move us on?
Yeah, I was gonna just say, I agree with Clark. Is there a way that we can, instead of saving up the entire amount that is required for a road, why can't we just pave every year, or have a fund, whatever we have in that account, to pave whatever we have? I mean, is that even feasible, Mr. James?
Mr. Mayor, we do have that. We have a road resurfacing program where every year we spend the money that we receive in gas tax to pave a road. Next year, it's Northwest 266th is being
That's correct.
paved. Is it paved?
We're now
With those funds.
We're currently working with a potential development there to, maximize the benefit to the section of road. And to Mr. Mayor, to your point, we anticipated this discussion. We anticipated roads would probably be its own individual workshop at some point in time. We've just authorized a good bit of trip counts on a long list of roads to update. The data we had was about 24 to 36 months. So we wanted to look at those roads again, get trip counts on those roads where the commission could make some informed decision based on trips. Which road may be applicable to pave, which roads may be applicable for chip seal, or which ones based on trips at this point in time we continue to add rock and maintain the best we can until the trips justify an improvement. That data should be obtained in the next 30 days, and once we have that, we anticipate to come back to the commission and further this discussion.
And
And
Mr.
I don't know what the trip count is. I just know that 30th and 266 seem to be holding up pretty well. 15th isn't holding up for anything, right? So somewhere in there is the number, and that's what I'd kind of like to get us to get a handle on, and that way we can say under this trip count, chip seal is a viable option. Over this trip count, it really isn't. But, I mean, my knee-jerk reaction to that 430, and I think we should have a whole separate night where we talk about it, is just to sort of dump it back into the projects that are already approved. But I also know that we, very rarely we ever just have a lump sum of 430,000, and it's probably pretty likely we're gonna be able to come up with all the other things that we were gonna do to fill in the gaps for the projects that we already have. And I'm getting kind of excited about being able to go out and get something done. So, you know, let's move on tonight and let's have this conversation about the roads and let's see, I mean, 430 is not paving anything, but it could get us a road chip sealed, maybe 2 small roads chip sealed. Jamie?
I totally agree. If you just hold it in your capital improvement fund, should any of your existing projects come in due to inflation, you know, cost increases in materials, should they come in higher, the commission has the discretion to apply then. If they don't need that or any of those projects, we can bring them in at a lower number. There's potential for us to increase that 430-something thousand. Commission could consider a road and would have the trip counts there then to decide which road they wanted to apply the funding to.
Mr. Mayor, this money is coming in regardless. No decisions need to be made immediately on it. You know, if in December the county's road tax passes, it's a very different conversation as to how we can use this fund with those funds. So we can absolutely just hold it until we have better data for the commission to make a decision on.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
I was just curious, is those roads that you were mentioning, they were holding up pretty well to the chip seal, do they have better drainage than 15th does, or?
I don't think it's necessarily a function of better drainage. I think it's a function of less trips and less trips at a lower gross vehicle weight. You see a lot more cut-through traffic on Southwest 15th east of 2741 that will probably exceed the weights that I mentioned. There are some spots that have some issues on 266, and they happen to be at areas where the drainage accumulates. There are some failing spots right now on what the county chip sealed on 202, and they're occurring exactly at the low points where the water comes to.
Plus you got ag tractors, a lot of them, and semis for ag.
Well, and the watermelon semis have been running up and down 30th, and you can tell it's not meant for that.
No.
It's not meant. But if you're coming out of Bass's watermelon, you got 337. That's not a great option. You got 30th chip sealed road. You know. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Right.
Question.
Look at that. Questions.
I think we're done on all the questions.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, if the commission has any questions, obviously, if there's anything you want to see in the budget or not see in the budget, open to any of your, open to your feedback.
My only question is, you know, I think that a lot of the tension that we're feeling in the community right now about growth and those kinds of things is that our community isn't seeing the projects that we are spending so much time working on doing. So I'm thrilled to see a budget that is moving City Hall forward, Seaboard Drive, 15th, because I think these are the visible things that the community wants to see, to then pair rooftops and infrastructure are happening at the same time, right?
To steal a term from the city manager, they're sexy projects.
Right. So give me, and this isn't really this tonight's workshop, but give me the timeline from both of y'all's perspective about when we're going to be able to break ground on, I think 15th is probably the closest, right?
Southwest 15th Avenue improvements west of 260th is at 50% design now. We anticipate that we will conclude that towards the end of the year. And the city's obligation is to pay for the portion from 260th west to our western cemetery boundary. The rest is coupled with some development. So they should start to see some work on that in early of next year. To the commission's point, the commission has, or the mayor's point, the commission has been building the foundation. Now some people want to see some things above the ground. Y'all spend a lot of time correcting a lot of issues, especially infrastructure-wise, that aren't necessarily visible to the general public. Now, the staff understands that we really need to move forward with some visible improvements, such as road improvements.
And Mr. Mayor, to Jamie's point, and Jamie can speak better to it, we do have 2 infrastructure projects going right. I believe we started one this week or last week on Newberry Lane. There's one on State Road 26 happening right now. In addition, I believe we'll be continuing to see project expansion in our Parks and Rec department. You know, we got those 2 grants from FERDAP. Travis and his team are working on the Jimmy Durden Park and the Easton Newberry Sports Complex projects, and we'll start to see some movement on those projects pretty soon as well.
In conjunction with that, we should be finishing up the streetlights that are a companion to the sidewalk project on Southwest 4th by Oakview Middle School. So we're trying to move some of the more visual projects forward.
Okay.
And we've had internal discussions as well as about trying to highlight those projects better in our marketing attempts and our social media attempts to connect with our residents that here are the projects that are happening that you may not be aware of.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman?
Well, I can tell you the perception. If we build a city hall here without fixing these daggone roads, I'll be sitting at the house, because they gonna find somebody that wanna spend the time and effort on the roads, because they, you know, granted, we gotta have it, but maybe not this soon.
Well, and you know, I think for me, I want to see, and I think this is how it will organically play out. I'd like 15th to be done before we even really break ground on City Hall, and I think that's kind of how it's playing out anyway. Seaboard Drive right now, we're kind of stuck with CSX. So, you know, we will probably get started on City Hall before that one is completed. But that's a bureaucratic red tape wall that we're hitting with CSX. That's why I think it's a good idea to think hard about spending that $430 on something that we could advertise. I have spent 8 years harping on Jamie's point that we have spent that entire time on the underground infrastructure of, you know, things that should have happened a long time ago, didn't happen the right way. We've been doing a lot of cleanup of things, but it's all under the ground. And it's hard to see it, and that's why I acknowledge that the tension that we are feeling right now is the disconnect between what you guys know, because you've been voting on it for 8 years, right, of fixing those things, doing the underground work, and what our residents see, right? We can talk about grocery stores that are on the horizon and potentials for Wawas and Halo Donuts and and all of those kinds of things that we get daily notifications that are coming, but none of them are here yet, right? And I think that's, you know, we need some of this commercial to move forward. We need some of our infrastructure projects, visible infrastructure projects, to move forward. So I'm tickled with this general fund because we've managed to do that while lowering the millage rate, move these 3 forward, you know, but these 3 started 2 years ago, you know, so just nothing moves, you know, fast when you're trying to do a good job, right, when you're trying to do it right. Any other questions? So we got Commissioner Farnsworth.
On the Parks and Recreation, the Easton, things like the walking paths, the interior roads and parking improvements.
Those are funded through the Wild Spaces program.
Well, my question is will Easton help fund any of that, or, I mean, can we get any money from Easton to help pay for any of that?
We can certainly have the conversations, but our past conversations have not been very positive in that aspect. But I'll talk to Travis and we'll have another conversation with Easton. On one of these, the multi-purpose field, just for the commission's knowledge, that is one of the projects the county's partnering with us, and the county's offered $400,000 towards that project.
When's our contract up with Easton?
I'll defer to Mr.
Damon
Parker.
or Travis, you know?
I want to say we've got,
The microphone.
You want to sit by the wall.
What, wait, what happened to the beard?
I just
come
got
on.
a mustache.
Man.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I believe that there is 20 years, don't hold me to that. I can look that up here in just a moment. I also want to say that there is a clause in there that allows for additional time after that if both parties agree. So,
I mean, what is, you know, that Easton runs an archery part, we run a Parks and Rec department there. I mean, out of the things that we want to do, what do we have a reasonable expectation of a partnership with? Because I'm not sure that walking trails, would Easton value with the people that come to shoot archery, do they want to take a break and go on a walk?
I believe when walking trails and paths is speaking more to sidewalks. So sidewalks around the facility, sidewalks through our baseball park, that kind of thing. I do believe there's a benefit for parking.
Yeah.
There's needed parking for really large events.
When's
And
that starting? When's our parking lot coming?
We're
next
working
week?
on parking lot design now.
Yeah.
Actually have a design. We're getting pricing as we speak, possibly to coincide with Phase 3 development that is happening out there.
Okay.
Would be a good time to do that, so.
All right.
Sell more
Does
Easton
that answer,
bats.
that answer your question? Commissioner Parker? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark?
So Dallas, this right here is just for capital improvement, this is for this year's budget?
Capital
What I see
improvements in
here
the
for
general
capital
fund.
improvement?
In the-
This is what each one's asking for, then we've got it funded?
Yeah, everything on this list is funded in the proposed budget
Okay,
for the governmental side of things, so it doesn't include any of the utilities or anything like that.
right, but just for,
Yes, sir. Mhm. Now, it may be funded, like I said, it's not all general funds, some of it's wild spaces, some of it's
but it's funded in
It
our
is
budget this year, what's on
It's
here.
proposed to be funded, it's not funded until you vote on it, but yes.
No,
You could say no, I'm just saying. It's proposed to be funded.
I understand that, but what I mean is,
In
I
your
see a
balanced
lot of,
budget, it's all there.
lot of good stuff here from departments, and it's already been put into the budget, and it's already covered.
Works.
Correct.
All
Once we vote on it, it's good.
right.
Correct.
Commissioner Maison?
Mayor Morrell, Champions Park, we're on budget season right now, and we got those poles and a lot of things that needs to get done there. Can that $400,000 be a part of getting that back up to par, or is that a
I
different?
mean, I think technically, with these, it could, right? Travis, can you come back up here?
Mr. Mayor, yes, that $400,000 would be available to use at Champions
You
Park
look
should the
older,
commission.
by the way, without the beard, man.
Travis,
Grace.
how are we doing, update the commission on the conversation between the managing company, the TDC, us? Has that progressed any? Do we have an update, or is it still?
No, Mr. Manager, it is about the same place we were. We did have a conversation with the county, and really our last conversation took place during our joint meeting, where they were in favor of us voting for the half-cent infrastructure tax, half-cent wild spaces. Hey, we'll help you out, with wild spaces funding. Requests so far have not gone well. I've had a conversation myself. I believe Mr. Manager has had several conversations with Michelle, Mark
Okay.
Sexton. And the idea is that, hey, you guys have wild spaces funding, you should use your wild spaces funding for it.
I mean, I think all of that is, we're just gonna wait and see, how the surtax goes and whether or not this community supports it. And then we'll find out the answers to those questions.
While I'm up here, a quick update. We are working on some improvements out there from the capital funding that the operator provides. We have shifted from replacing fencing and wood posts, to replacing turf in some of the areas that are desperately needed, so.
And do we have an updated, because at one point in time, the city had gone in and really done an assessment of, depreciation costs, how much we need to put in, and do we have an idea how much money that part needs to be putting away each year, or how much money we need up front to get it back to speed. We're looking at $1 million, $1.5 million, two,
To get it up
to
to,
fix everything right now, to get
it
it
would
up
be
to
more than that.
more than 2 million.
Mr. Mayor, yes. I believe that turf to replace, if you were to go in and replace all 16 fields of the artificial turf, you're at over $1.5 million. Given where we are right now in the last 6 months and the increases, we might be more than that.
What about the poles?
Boondoggle.
What about is that to fix it, to get it back up to par the way it was, or to get it,
Make it
fix it
perfect.
correctly?
Yes, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, the poles, their posts themselves, that all is being replaced with steel posts.
Okay.
So we're no longer going to experience what we've experienced since we took it.
Okay.
One thing on,
Clark.
what's the possibility of going back to turf, or is that not a possibility? I mean, going back to.
No artificial
sod.
turf and going to sod. That's a possibility. There is a,
Is there a cost savings? Is there something in the field, the way we run it now, everybody loves it. But I think if we went to the sod, back to natural grass, would it hurt our teams coming in?
It would. I think that is a draw. I think there is a major advantage to the drainage system. The only thing that's ever going to stop you there is lightning. The other side is, depending on how the park is managed in the future, you could be looking at, let's just say you come in and you make them all skin infields and you have clay. The maintenance side of that is crazy compared to right now. All you do is cut grass in the outfield. So long term, you got to weigh out what kind of staffing would you need if that were something that we would ever take over.
Okay,
Yeah, I
and
remember Babe Ruth had a tournament over in Lotchwood that they had to cancel, and they had to move it over here because they didn't have the drainage.
I think we get 2 or 3 tournaments every year that were already scheduled somewhere else, and they come to us because of drainage issue. I mean, it's
We
a.
hosted
common
Babe
story.
Ruth state championships last year, and we moved some just because
Yeah.
you got to get games in.
While we have you up here and Jamie, and Dallas here, and Jamie, yeah, I think that we need to go ahead and prepare, if the surtax passes, right, we have a half cent for infrastructure, we have a half cent for wild spaces. I think we need to, the commission needs to go ahead and prepare a list of projects for our residents, because our residents are struggling with, how would this benefit us? We can't speak to what the county would spend their money on, but we could absolutely speak to our residents about what we would spend the money on. We would spend it on roads, right, the infrastructure, and these would be the roads we would do, right? We passed a resolution of the top 3 county roads in our city that we'd like them to address. I don't know that we need a resolution, but I think it would be good for us to publish, these are the top 3 city roads, right? Because I think even in our conversations about roads, I hear roads that don't belong to us thrown in and roads that do belong to us. We need to try to, start separating that out and say, yeah, if this passes, county, we'd like to fix 337, 235, 232. And if it passes, we're going to fix X, Y, and Z. And the same thing with wild spaces, right? These would be, maybe champions. Maybe we would put some money into champions out of wild spaces. Maybe we wouldn't. Splash pads, skate parks, right? What would we do? Tennis parks. Man, if I can't get a tennis court in here, a golf course somewhere, driving range.
About West End.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, the city
Only
manager.
the Newberry High golf team can play on it, though.
Mr. Mayor, the city manager's already tasked us on creating that list, so we are working on it. We had planned on it closer to November, but if the commission wants to
fine.
have it earlier.
No, just wanted to talk about it, and you guys are already on top of it, as usual, so. Mr. Jones?
Mr. Mayor, just as a suggestion, we have a road classification system where we classify our roads in 3 different categories, whether they are in good shape currently, like they need to be, whether there's some improvement needed, or whether they are, the lowest classification and totally need to be redone, paved or unpaved. So my suggestion would be, and I've had the conversation with the city manager before, that allow me to do trip counts on all of those roads, and then I provide the trip data. And then based on the amount of trips, all the lower classification roads, you move forward based on vehicle trips. That kind of takes the discussion out of it with residents, my road's more important than this road's more important than that. You just pick that one because A, B, C, D are here. If it's classified as one of your lowest classifications, you rank them, this one has the most trips to the least trips, and you apply your funding on that list.
I wholeheartedly agree, but I also recognize that the county in a way is doing the exact same thing, which is why we get no love, right? Because they're looking at trip counts. They're just flat looking at numbers, okay? And they're saying, I got 10,000 trips on this road in Gainesville, and you got 1,000 out there in Newberry. Sorry, Newberry, I got to do it out here. So I think we've got to get a little bit more creative about how we are treating all of our folks equitably as well. You talked about fire trucks getting down. I think that we should, our argument to the county of why 337 should move up is it may not have the trip counts, but it's got the highest fatality rate, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we get with our new chief and we say, what roads can you not get down with that truck? What roads are really wear and tearing? Maybe there's roads around that we've got an inordinately high number of elderly people, and there's not a lot of trip counts, but they're calling the fire department once a month, right? Maybe we need to have our own fatality study. I don't know what study, but I think we can internally, we've got a fire department, and we could talk to ASO, so I think I'm at 75% should be trip counts, but there should be some consideration for some other factors in there as well. Because if it's just trip counts, the folks down in Watermelon Pond, they're going to be on dirt road forever, right? And I'm not saying that we're going to pave it. That should be a dirt road forever because it's got such low counts, right? But I want to see us make sure that we're not guilty of the same things we turn around and criticize the county over. We are thinking about how to be equitable to areas of our community that will never have the trip counts, but have an atrocious road too, right?
Mr. Mayor, I think we understand the direction. We'll work on a list and propose a workshop probably in September, October timeframe. We want to make sure it's before early voting and those sorts of things. One thing we would look towards the commission for in that conversation is the surtax is split between infrastructure and roads. The infrastructure is a very broad category, so the commission would have the ability to spend it on a variety of different infrastructure projects, not just roads. What most cities do in this situation is pick a split, 80-20, 80% of it goes to roads, 20% goes to some other capital project. We do have, obviously, roads is one of our biggest capital needs. We do have other capital needs that need to be funded to the city, but we'll come back to the commission with more information and projects. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. As a reminder, next Monday in the City Commission meeting, the commission will be voting on the preliminary millage and preliminary fire assessment rates. Those are the caps that can be adopted this year. Staff will be proposing no increase in the fire assessment rate, 195, and we'll be proposing continuing the millage rate at 5.999, knowing that our current budget is based on a millage rate that is lower than that and would result in a tax decrease for our residents. We also have at 6:30 that workshop with our financial advisor who will discuss economic forecasts as well as debt strategies. With that,
Will you look at the agenda for Monday night?
it's pretty light.
Pretty light. Can we move the budget or the forecast to 7 and then start? Because that's going to be I actually think the forecast may be a longer conversation. So maybe can we split the difference to 6:45? That way it gives everybody a little bit of time to get here. I think that economic forecast is philosophically crucial because I've heard comments up here on the dais and out in the community about why we should begin to pull back or make certain decisions based on what people believe is about to happen, right? And that's, I share a lot of the same concerns about what may happen, but that always makes me really uncomfortable when we start making decisions based on what, well, I think this is going to happen,
No. That's why you said 6:45, Monty, pay attention.
I was just kind of curious.
I mean, if it's is there an objection to moving it to 7? Is the consultant, not, who are we bringing in?
It's our financial advisor from Public Finance Management. The city
they-
has a contracted financial advisor for these things.
Can they come at 7 and then we'll just have the commission meeting will follow?
Yeah, we can do that.
Is there any objection to that?
6:45.
So, no, we'll just.
We can do
We'll
7.
just start at 7. We'll
Okay.
do the economic, forecasting, right? Have that conversation, and then it's a light agenda, we'll move right into it. We've gotten used to going here till midnight anyway,
But
so
it still won't be impact fees.
not impact fees. This is just, is Florida gonna experience, is America gonna experience a recession?
Okay.
Is Florida gonna experience a
We're in
recession?
it now.
When should we be borrowing money? When's good times?
About a year ago.
Have you
Any other
bought
questions?
corn?
Yeah.
Can I start a consulting business and be on the outside and then come up here too?
No. I mean, yes, you just can't
Can
do,
for other
you just
cities.
can't do business with the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions up here from the dais? Seeing none?
Say one thing.
All right.
Appreciate whenever they do a science flow presentation, I appreciate having a hard copy that we can
Take home.
Yeah.
follow along instead of trying to
Yeah.
look at the screens.
You always have had it.
If they can do that with all,
I got one question.
All right.
Are those two guys gamers? Isn't that what they call them?
I wouldn't challenge them.
You don't have to
I bet you they'd take it
They
to you.
look like they, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
You can all go home and watch our high production value commission meeting.
That's right.
Now.
Okay, in the absence of any citizens ask if they want to make a comment, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn.